All right. I see participants joining us, so welcome to those of you who are joining us for the Science of Cooking, Molecular Gastronomy Spherification tonight. We're gonna wait just a few minutes here as people join on. I know we had well over 200 people signed up for this webinar tonight, so we're excited about that, and we'll give you all a second to join.
Play with me. You good.
For those of you just joining us, we're letting everybody log on to the webinar here. We've got just a couple minutes and we'll get going. Those of you who are logged in may notice we don't have a chat feature for tonight's webinar, but what we do have is the Q&A button down at the bottom. It looks like a little chat bubble. So if you have questions or comments or want to reply to any questions as we ask them tonight, please go ahead and put your responses in there, and we'll be monitoring that as we go through the evening. All right, correction. Actually, the chat is activated tonight. I thought we deactivated that, but the chat is activated. So, Emily, is there a mute feature for the chat? Not at this point, unfortunately. But those of you who are joining us, and if you'd like to use the chat, by all means, please do. We ask that you please just respect the rest of the community with your comments. Otherwise, we have to take drastic action. We hate that. But we're excited to have you all contribute to the conversation tonight. If you do have a direct question, please use the chat, excuse me, not the chat, but the Q&A function at the bottom of your screen. Looks like a little chat bubble and says Q&A. So put your questions directly in there so that we can address them in tonight's program. All right, we got a couple people joining us yet. Hi, Terry. Nice to have you join us tonight. We've got a hello from Jeff and Michelle. Oh, and Jeff says, my name's not Jeff, it's actually Antonio. So hi, Antonio. Great to have you joining us tonight. Deidre, we're excited to have you here too. We see our questions starting to come in, so that's great. If you do have questions, go ahead and put them in the in the Q&A. We've got a note here, hi from Flagstaff. Hello, Flagstaff. Happy to see you here tonight too. So participants who are just joining us, we cannot see you, you can see us, but if you'd like to communicate, you can use the chat feature to communicate with other attendees tonight, or if you have a question, you're going to use the Q&A function that is at the bottom of the screen. It looks like a little Q&A bubble or chat bubble. You're going to click on there and enter your question, and we'll be addressing those as we go through the program tonight. Hi, Reed. Thanks for joining us tonight. And I appreciate it. Those of you who are asking if there's any noise from the participant side, we cannot hear you, so that's good. You're all muted, but you're here and you can hear us. All right, we got lots of people. Hello from Faith. Hi, Faith. Soul, Savannah, Grace, Angela, Marley, Betsy, Liam, Sierra. I hope I didn't miss anybody there. Claire, Lauren, and Robert, Elizabeth, Elliot, Luna. Nice to have you all here. Stacy, Riley. Glad to have you all joining us tonight. All right, so I think we're at that point. We've got a couple more people joining us yet, but we're gonna go ahead and get us kicked off here, and we'll go over some logistics. And first, thank you all for joining us tonight for the Science of Cooking, Molecular Gastronomy, Spherification. We're so excited to be able to do these cool things. I'm Sari, the Chief Science and Curiosity Officer at Arizona Science Center, and these are some of my favorite events to do because just because the Science Center is closed right now doesn't mean that the science has to stop. And we've got such great partners that help us think about science in cool, exciting, and different ways, maybe even unexpected ways, like the science found in the kitchen and the science that you find when you're cooking. And there's so much there. And we'll come back to that with our very special guest tonight, Chef Jon Clancy and Junior Chef Peyton from M Culinary Concepts. So we're going to hear from them in just a minute. And before we dive into that, let's go over just a few logistics. We know we have a few more people that just joined us. So tonight, as part of our program, we are recording. We cannot see you attendees, but we do have a chat box open for you to communicate. If you have a specific question, please post your question in the Q&A bubble at the bottom. I'll try to monitor both, so I'll be your host tonight, helping to facilitate those questions throughout the program, and we will do our best to answer your questions. All right, I think those are the logistics there. And as I mentioned, we have our very special guest tonight to talk about this great recipe, walking us through a culinary masterpiece. So a huge special thank you to our preferred catering partners at M Culinary Concepts. And I would like to say hello to Chef Jon Clancy and Junior Chef Peyton. Hi guys, how you doing?
Hello everybody. Peyton's here with me, my niece. I'm super excited tonight. We get to cook with my niece. It's gonna be a good time, everybody.
I love that. Well, and our guests who are at home, a lot of folks are home with kids, but even if you're not, I mean, this activity, this recipe is really good for all ages, correct?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
All of the ingredients that we're gonna talk about today are available on Amazon, something like that. You'll be able to get these and get a little chemistry kit going at your house in your home kitchen and have all the same fun that Peyton and I are gonna have today.
Well, and speaking of the ingredients too, so anybody who was already registered for this webinar had a chance to receive all of the ingredients in the recipe ahead of time. And don't worry, we will follow up if you didn't get it. We're going to follow up again with another email that has that recipe in it. You can find a lot of these ingredients, as Chef Clancy said, online at your favorite online retailer. A lot of them are also available in your grocery store, just in unexpected places, like the canning section or in the bakery aisle. They're just materials that you don't normally use often, so they sound super exotic, but you can find them around. Or of course, since we're recording this, we'll post the video again and you'll be able to follow along after you get the ingredients, however you get them. So, all right, I am so excited to see this happen. And before we get there, Chef Clancy and Chef Peyton, can you guys talk a little bit about, who you are, how you got into cooking, and, just how you got where you are? What are your passions?
All right. Well, I'm the executive chef here at M Culinary, representing 3 of our brands, M Catering, Main Course, and Nibblers here. So we're kind of all over the valley, always doing parties, doing different things like that. So I'm lucky. I get to have fun like this all the time. So I wanted to bring a little family in and have some good time cooking in the comfort of our little quarantined conference room here, so we could just have a good time and make some fun food that would be appropriate for kids and appropriate for the summer. We're excited to be here. I got into cooking very, very young. At about age 10, I used to go in the kitchen all the time with my mom, and then as I was going through high school, I was like, what am I gonna do? And I kind of just landed on something that I really enjoyed. So here I am after 25 years of grinding in the kitchen and being in the heat of battle. I'm finally at the helm here, running a wonderful culinary team and getting some time to cook with my niece here. So good time.
So Peyton, did you get wrestled in? Have you always been excited about cooking, or do you just do it as a way to hang out with your uncle?
So it's kind of a mixture. I obviously haven't been cooking as long as my uncle, but but I have been cooking around probably about 8. And yeah, it's definitely very fun. I always get to, when I'm at my uncle's house, I always get to try new foods, and it's a really good experience.
Oh, that's awesome. So any tips? We'll come back to that actually at the end. But so I want to ask you guys one more question, because tonight is all about the science of cooking, and I'm going to help pull out those nuggets. But I know that as chefs, you guys get a chance to probably see some of that. How do you see science and cooking basically blending? What are some connections you might see?
Well, cooking is all about science, believe it or not. We have reactions with different ingredients. There's chemicals. We have In baking, there's yeast activities happening. You know, we have heat, we have cold. We're going to talk about tonight adding some different elements to kind of change the form of food and get a different texture to it. So this is going to be a fun one tonight, I think.
That's awesome. And which leads me to my first bit of science that I get to talk about tonight, because it's such a great name, molecular gastronomy. Have you dabbled in this for a long time?
We've been doing it here at M Culinary for probably about 5 or 6 years now. We have a team that's a little bit more expert on some different techniques. What we're going to talk about today is something that we actually do pretty regularly, which is going to be spherification. But I'm going to show you 2 different types and kind of talk about the better ways to utilize those 2 types in cooking.
I love it. And for our guests who are at home right now saying, what on earth exactly is molecular gastronomy? That's just the concept and the practice of taking scientific principles and applying it in innovative ways in the kitchen. So thinking about the form, function, and changes that you can make to foods to make an exciting new flavor or combination. And tonight's spherification is all about making spherical shapes in different ways. So taking liquids and creating a spherical skin around them, basically. So without further ado, well, first off, how hard do you think this is going to be for people? Pretty easy, or like on a scale of 1 to 5, super hard, or 1 super easy?
We're going to show you 2 types. One of them is a little bit more difficult than the other, but when we talk about direct spherification, I think that's something that everybody should be able to do right at home.
All right. So let's jump into it. Why don't you go ahead and start, and I'm going to interrupt you 100 times with science. So
cool.
Let's do it.
Cool. So we're going to talk about 2 different types of spherification. One of them is direct spherification, and the other one is a reverse spherification. So the direct spherification is actually where we're going to take an element of food and make it into a gel. Okay, so when we put it into our cold oil and get our little orbs, our little balls, it's actually going to be a jellified substance at that point. The other type of spherification is going to be reverse spherification. Reverse spherification actually uses some chemical in the liquid that we're going to turn into a sphere, and then we're putting it into a base that's going to set that item. A little bit more difficult, but there's going to be 2 different types of textures that come out of that. With the direct spherification, like I said, we're just making a gel. So the item that we use is actually going to be like a little gummy. The other item is really going to get, on the reverse spherification, that item is going to get an outside solidified structure on the outside. It's going to set, but there's still going to be some liquid in the middle, if I'm saying that right. So we're going to be able to show the different uses for that in cooking.
Cool. And now, when we first set it up, I heard fruit juice caviar, but this is not a real caviar.
Caviar.
So
one of the things we're doing here is the first one, I'd like to start off with the direct spherification, if that's okay, because we got to do a little cooling and then we can kind of work into the next one. But we actually do a little cooking with that first round. So should we get into that?
Let's get into it.
Okay, good deal. So Peyton and I thought it would be fun if we did something. I know there's a lot of kids on this webinar today, so we wanted to do something that would be fun for kids. And I don't know if you guys noticed, but it's 105 degrees already, right? So we thought it would be fun to maybe do a little strawberry lemonade. Okay, so we're gonna make some strawberry pearls with the direct spherification, and we're gonna make a little strawberry lemonade. But then we're gonna do something that we know every kid likes, right? Who doesn't dig pancakes? So what we're gonna do with the reverse spherification is we're gonna solidify some maple syrup and actually put that on top of our pancakes. And hopefully if everything works correctly, it's gonna still be able to roll over the top because we're just gonna solidify the outside. So the first thing we're gonna get into is our jellification sphere. So this is gonna be direct spherification. I have some strawberry puree here. You'll notice in the recipe it just says a puree of fruit juice, okay? We wanted to use strawberry here because it's a good flavor all the kids like, right? So I got about 3 cups here. I kind of tripled the recipe just for the sake of, so we have enough to mess with. I'm gonna heat this up. We'll bring that to a little bit of a simmer. And then what we wanna do, Peyton, is we want to add some agar. I don't know, Sari, if you want to talk about what agar is, but I can tell you this. Both of the items we're going to be using tonight, sodium alginate and agar, are based off of algae. So that might be an interesting thing to segue into.
Yes, that's actually perfect. Well, and I'll kick back to strawberries too. I mean, who doesn't love strawberries? But they are one of the only foods that have the seeds on the outside. So just a special note there. And then agar is derived from seaweed, as Chef Clancy mentioned. It's a vegetarian gelatin derived specifically from red algae. It's normally used as a thickening agent in puddings, custards, sauces, and it's super high in fiber. So fun fact, and you know, because we'll go there, it's often used as a laxative, just so you guys know. It's also the same material in science that's used when plating petri dishes. So that solid base when you're building a nutrient matrix and before somebody does a swab on a petri dish, that is exactly the same thing here, but used for a different purpose. And it's great because once it's melted, it happens to be semi-transparent. So it makes it pretty clear and really cool to use. Oh,
Very cool.
And we have a question here actually already. Agar, can I make agar powder from flakes? I guess you could grind it, but I've never tried. Any thoughts on there on flakes versus powder?
I don't have the direct answer for that, but I'll tell you that a lot of the recipes will ask for powder specifically. So I would assume that there's maybe a little bit different of a chemical makeup there, or just at least the structure of it and how it breaks down into the food. Maybe so, but for the sake of this, I'm going to say go with the powder. It's actually the easiest agar to find, I find, in the market is the agar powder. So we've actually got a little bit of a simmer going. Okay, what we're doing is we're cooking that agar into here, and then we're going to just let this cool for about 3 to 5 minutes, because like I said, this is a gelification. So the agar, if you just let it cook in here and sit, this strawberry juice will actually thicken after about 10 minutes, and then you won't be able to use it. But we want to get it into a sphere before that happens. So now that this has kind of come to a simmer, I'm going to set this over on Peyton's station. Peyton's going to let this cool for a second, and we're going to kind of get into the other type of spherification while that's happening, and then we can talk about how we actually make spheres out of our strawberry puree there. So the next one we're not going to actually cook, but I did get started ahead of time. I'm going to have you, Peyton, kind of start our sodium alginate process. So what we do is we just start off with a little bit of water. Okay, we're going to follow our recipe. But as you can see here, I got a few different types. I showed you the agar while Sari was talking, but I have sodium alginate here. This is what we're going to use for our base, to make our base with water. It's going to thicken that.
I'm going to jump in really quickly on that one too, just because it's that time for the science. Sodium alginate is really actually similar to the agar, where it's derived from seaweed, but this time it's from brown algae. So also a thickener, same basic description, but derived from a different plant. So sorry, keep going.
No worries, no worries. So we're going to go ahead and start with this here. I got about a teaspoon I'm going to add in here based on the water that I put in. You go ahead and whisk that up, Peyton. You'll kind of notice as Peyton's whisking that that's going to just start coagulating a little bit. What you guys want to do is let this sit and kind of bloom almost like gelatin. So where it's melting, it's dissolving in there and it's thickening the water. She's going to stir that for a little bit, but we're actually going to use the magic of television and kind of show you, excuse me there, Peyton, what it looks like. It does change color, and you can see it's just a little bit thicker than water would be, right? We're getting that algae in there. It's going to start thickening, and it's going to set our calcium chloride or our calcium lactate, and I'm going to talk about that right now.
Good.
So the other,
you used a great word, Chef Clancy. Sorry to interrupt again, but you said coagulate a couple minutes ago there, and coagulate is a really good word. That's how materials come together and make like a semi-solid. You start to see it clump together, that coagulation. Really great science word there, and I just didn't want to miss out on that.
Good, good. So we actually are going to use a calcium to set this, okay? So we have two different types. And you'll notice in the recipe that I actually listed both types. You can use them the same amount of quantity in them, and they can be used interchangeably, but I'll tell you the kind of the difference. You'll see here I have a sodium chloride, and then I have a calcium lactate, okay? The sodium chloride looks actually like little pebbles. You see that? So it's a little bit more difficult to use because it has a harder time dissolving. The calcium,
Chef, just clarification, are you using calcium or sodium chloride?
We're using calcium chloride. Did I say sodium?
That's all right. I wanted to make sure that we were clear on that.
Calcium chloride and calcium lactate.
Sodium chloride is normally what you would find as table salt at home.
Correct.
So I just want to make
You're
sure
100% correct.
We're
You're
clear
100%
there.
correct. Okay, so I'm actually going to use the calcium lactate today because it's more of a powder form like this agar, and it's very simple to dissolve in there. You don't cook it like we did with the strawberry puree. You just blend it in. I will tell you though, I got two different maple syrups here. This one that looks almost like a root beer has the calcium chloride in it. So a little interesting. I never really did maple syrup before, so I found that in this recipe, the calcium chloride doesn't really get the color that I want. I want it to look like real maple syrup, right? So this is the calcium lactate. Flavor-wise, completely the same. I tried them both. They're both delicious, but we want to make it kind of like a real maple syrup.
I love that. That's a really good reason behind it. And there's a quick question here about the maple spheres. For those who are trying this at home, how do they measure, how do you convert grams to teaspoons, cups, and such? Or how much do you use?
I'm going to tell you to Google something like that and get a little conversion chart. It's going to help you. I can give you a quick little cheat sheet. 10 grams is 2 teaspoons, or 5 grams is 1 teaspoon, I should say. So I know a lot of times it's dealing with half grams and small amounts on these recipes, but you'll just have to get a little conversion going. And the best way to do that is to probably find a conversion chart on the internet.
Thank you.
Okay, so as we get into these, we're going to use the calcium lactate for the sake of our demonstration here. So what we've done is we've already put the calcium lactate in here, because if you read the recipe, it's going to say, get everything really cold and let this stuff sit for an hour so it really dissolves in. So we've already done that. You can hang tight on that because we've made it happen already. There you go. So we'll check back in on this just for fun to see what happens by the time we're done. But Peyton and I did this about 2 hours ago, so this is nice and cold. It's already got our coagulation. And now we have our calcium lactate that's in our maple syrup, and Peyton's going to start having some fun here. So I'm going to load you up, Peyton.
And I see you're using a syringe there,
yes.
Kitchen syringe. But if somebody didn't have a syringe at home, a great substitution I would think is a straw. Do you have anything else that you might consider using?
Straw. I have a squeeze bottle. This one actually has 3 tops, but you could get a standard squeeze bottle, or we actually have these slotted spoons. We're going to use these spoons to get our caviar and our spheres out of here. But you could use this and let it kind of drip through the spoon. It's actually a way we make spetzel, is by pushing that batter through these slotted spoons and these slotted grates here. So another fun thing to cook. That's dropping through a dropper. So Peyton, go ahead, start dropping some of this in here. Now, we're just kids having fun, right? So they don't have to be perfect. We just want to make sure the actual science of this works. Peyton's going to try doing some little balls or whatnot, maybe some worms, who knows? Maybe you want to do a big one. So have a good time with that.
And I'll pull out my moment too, because you're pushing it back out there, but with a syringe or even your straw, to get your material up into the syringe the first time, you actually have to produce basically a low pressure system. You're drawing it up in there. So couldn't miss a science moment when we can. If you're using a straw at home, same thing. When you put your thumb over the end, you're going to help cap it off and be able to hold on because of pressure. Pressure is going to help keep your material inside that straw. So very cool. Look at those drops.
Yeah, they're fun. So they're starting to coagulate on the bottom. We're not getting quite as many fun spheres as we're hoping for, but you're going to see when we get into our gelification process, which is why I said this is probably an easier process. They're going to spherify right away. This takes a little bit while to set, and the base actually has to be really, really cold. So we pulled this out about a half an hour ago, and that may be why we're having some struggle. But when you do this at home and you make your calcium base, you're going to want to probably put that in the freezer and get it really cold before we start to go. Let's pull some out and see if any of them are starting to set at all.
And while you do that, I've got a couple of questions here too that I think we can tackle. There's a couple people asking if they can, if they can't find either the agar or if they can't find sodium alginate, can we just use gelatin? But gelatin doesn't work in this case. It doesn't have the same chemical formula to react with the other chemicals. I would stick just to those powders, so the agar and the sodium alginate. And then, as we mentioned before, the other chemicals we're using right now with the sodium alginate, we're using either calcium lactate or calcium chloride here. Calcium chloride is used for brining pickles, so you can find that in the canning section. Calcium lactate you might be able to find as well in the baking aisle.
Yes, I'm going to try the calcium chloride mixture just for fun, to see if this one sets a little different. I didn't have any challenge with that one earlier, but it just had a different color like I mentioned. Do you want to mess with that one, Peyton?
Yes.
See if this one works?
All right.
A couple of our guests asked at home if they didn't get the recipes, so if you're following along, don't worry about writing it down. We'll follow up in another email with the recipes if you didn't receive them yesterday. So if you signed up today and didn't get an email, don't worry, we'll follow up with you and make sure you get the recipes again.
Great. Yeah, this one's really fun. The calcium chloride seems to set real quick when it gets in there. She's making a bunch of worms and fun stuff. So, hey, regardless, guys, this is just a good time squeezing things, making fun things, and then we're going to put this syrup after it sets. So we're going to let this set in here. Regardless of what shapes we have, we're definitely setting the outside. The chemicals are reacting, and we will have some fun shapes to put on top of our pancakes afterwards. But now we've probably had enough time for our strawberry puree to cool down. So if you don't mind, we'll get into that. And again, really cold, need really cold oil in order to set this. I had this in the freezer, but another thing that's kind of fun, Peyton, you want to grab a little chunk with the tongs and put it in there? Fun thing about oil, maybe not that big. Yeah. Little guy in the corner. Bigger. So one fun thing about oil is we actually can put dry ice in it. It's not going to freeze. It's actually, when we go do events, it's actually how we shut down our fryers at the end of the night, because that's how we can chill the oil like almost in 30, 40 minutes rather than 5 hours of chilling, so that we can get our trucks loaded back up and out the door. So as you can see, this is going to keep our, isn't that fun? Isn't that fun?
I love it. Well, and I'm going to interject really quickly because we said dry ice. I love dry ice. Dry ice isn't regular ice, so it's not actually water that's frozen. It's frozen carbon dioxide. So that was a surprise. I didn't know that was coming out tonight. That's so cool. Literally. Yeah. I mean, it's so cold, well below zero. And of course, at the moment, it's escaping me. I want to say it's 96 degrees below zero, but I don't think that's right. And I'm going to have to look it up here in a second just to make sure I get you the right number. But it's so cold, it could actually burn your skin if you're holding on to it with your bare hands. So if you do end up using dry ice at home, of course, you can get it at the grocery store, but please use caution when you're using it. But that's awesome. And you can see the bubbles. I don't know if the camera can get in there again just to see the bubbles, the carbon dioxide.
I don't know if you can see the bubbles there.
Yeah, so it skips the liquid phase, goes directly from solid into a gas. So that's the bubbling that you see happening right there. But it's leaching all that wonderful cold temperature into the oil around it.
Feel the side of that. Is that freezing or what? Oh my gosh, yeah, it's practically frozen oil without freezing. So it's the best. I wish we could do it here and keep this cold, but as you know, if we were to put dry ice into this is a water base. This would end up bubbling all over the place, making more smoke, and you wouldn't be able to see us. So that's not going to be the best way to do that. So have fun with this one. I know this one is going to, this is our direct spherification. So this is going to gellify as soon as it hits the water. So you want to try to go slow to get some nice little balls. But if, like I said, again, we're just having fun with our food. So if it ends up being some worms and some long things, then that's what it is. Ooh, very cool. Cool.
So, and just because I couldn't help myself and totally blanked, even though I talk about it all the time. All right, I had to look it up here. Dry ice is about 109 degrees below zero. So, oh, and I just had somebody pop in with an answer for me. Vicky, thank you. Coming to my rescue again. Vicky, I appreciate that. But very, very cold oil here. And you mentioned that, Chef Clancy, that you've got the oils. And it might be a little unexpected because you're using vegetable oil, correct? Do you know what kind of oil we're using?
We're using a canola oil.
Canola oil. All right. So canola oil is one of the most popular oils in the United States. And plant-based oils are made from crushing the seeds or nuts of those plants and then either physically or chemically extracting the oils even further out of them. So those are, other popular oils like palm oil or soybean oil. And those tend to be on the healthier side. So it doesn't freeze, because those oils have unsaturated fats in them, and unsaturated fats have a much lower freezing point. So if you think about animal fats, like when you have a steak at room temperature, it has a layer of fat around the edge that's a solid. So here's your solid liquid gas, again, some more states of matter. We've got this liquid oil. Now, animal fats have those saturated fats in them that are solid at room temperature. Here we've got the liquid, and it will stay liquid into a colder temperature for a longer period of time. So,
yeah, I had, like I said, I had this in the freezer for probably an hour, and it's still liquefied when it came out. Here's just the version if we decide to use the squeeze bottle here. But the fun thing about this is it'll just drip into the balls like this.
Wow. We had a couple questions about if people could use colanders or other things to hold
Yes.
them. I would say, yeah. Oh, how cool is that? We got some really big ones in there and some little tiny spheres. That's so cool.
Yeah, and so these set immediately. Like I said, this is the direct spherification. So Peyton, you want to get some of those out? The ones on the bottom are kind of ready. Why don't you put them in our glasses? We're going to enjoy some strawberry lemonade.
Oh, wow. That's awesome.
So we'll show the camera a little bit. Let me pull a few of these out.
That looks really cool.
So as you can see, they're all set. They're not sticking together. Okay. We can always set them on a little paper towel, let them soak up a little bit of that oil before we put them in our lemonade, but we don't care. We're going to have ours regardless.
So there's another question here about the oil. It says flavorless oil. Can you go into a little more about flavorless oil? And when it comes to flavor, that's all you, Chef Clancy and Chef Peyton.
When it comes to flavor?
Yes.
Go ahead.
Well, are there any preferred oils as far as flavorless oils?
Yeah, canola, vegetable are going to be your very lightest. When you start moving into corn, you're going to have a heartier flavor, and obviously as you move into olive oils, it's going to get a lot more rich and flavorful at that point. A lot of times we'll use olive oils unless it's a really light olive oil, just for finishing, just because it's got all that earthy flavor. This, we don't want to pick up any flavors. We don't want our lemonade to taste oily. It's actually going to drain itself off pretty good, and it won't even get into our lemonade, and we won't pick up any flavor of vegetable oil from this. I want to pour you a glass, Peyton.
So if you were to use lemonade straight off the bat, which is a little higher pH, my guess is this wouldn't work nearly as well to use mixed beers.
Yeah, so if you have a high acidic beverage that you're going to be putting this into, it will compromise it a little bit, but nothing in a quick period of time. We have to have garnishes. We're a food service company.
Oh, wow.
Right, so isn't it something cool? You could make this at home. Everybody on this call could make this at home.
That looks fantastic.
Right, summery. We got our strawberry flavor in there. We got our little balls floating on the top. Cheers, Peyton. This is good.
Oh my gosh.
Strawberry.
That's amazing.
Strawberry.
It reminds me of summer too. I love that.
I can't wait to go swimming when we get home.
So a couple of questions we've got right now for you too. As you're tasting that, are the spheres cold, Peyton?
It's like, not really, but a little bit, yes. So it's like not like a whole bunch cold, but it's a little bit cold, yes.
And how would you describe the texture at this point too?
Oh wow. So the texture is definitely very weird. It's soft, and once you like try to even bite, you can't even bite on it. It just like kind of almost like melts a little bit in your mouth, and then when your tongue gets placed on it, it kind of just kind of breaks. So the texture is definitely weird, but it's still very good.
Yeah, so these actually hold for quite a while. That's the fun thing about the direct spherification. We could make these, put them in a deli container like this or a little plastic container at home and keep them for a couple weeks. No problem.
That's awesome.
Yeah, you'd be surprised.
And if you wanted to make other flavors, there's a couple questions here about other purees that you could use. Do you have any other favorites that you think work really well in spherification?
You know, one of our favorites that we use regularly in our world of fine dining, we do balsamic caviar a lot. So we can top our caprese salads and finish off some of our little hors d'oeuvres with a little burst of flavor there. That's a big one for us. We do a lot of spicy things. We do sriracha. We do definitely fruit purees, excuse me. And then we do like basils and herb and earthy flavors like that. And we'll make like a basil puree or a rosemary puree, make a pesto caviar. So we do some fun stuff like that.
Great. I know that I think the recipe is written with passion fruit in it. So
yes.
I know that's a really popular one as well, passion fruit. Some people mention that they're allergic to strawberries, so thinking of other fruits that they might be interested in using.
Sure. You can almost use anything that has a liquid form to it. You'd think that something like a vinegar, maybe that all that acid wouldn't work with the agar. It doesn't have any effect on it at all. So have fun with it. Maybe you'll find something that we've never done before. We've let everything sit in our sodium chloride for a while, about 2-3 minutes. So it should set. We weren't horribly successful, Peyton, at making nice, beautiful spheres, but I think this is going to be pretty fun to eat. You want to try to get them out?
Yes. Oh my gosh, that looks actually pretty crazy. I did make a huge worm over here, so I'm excited to see if that huge worm definitely worked out.
I think we smashed it.
Yeah, but that's okay. We're still having fun. We're still having fun though.
So looks like we need to work on our sodium alginate a little bit, but this is still good time.
Yeah, we're still having fun.
You know, well, and this is perfect for us because we love seeing when things don't go quite right, because it happens a lot in science, right? That thing called human error, and you have to have certain conditions, right? And sometimes one little thing can go wrong and it doesn't come out quite the same way. So you get to try it again, and there's a whole process about being able to iterate. So I love that. Good story.
Yes, if you think for 25 years we got everything right every time we cooked in the kitchen, you're sorely mistaken. So this is how we figured things out. So I'm very confident the reason why we didn't create a sphere right away when it hit this is because we lost the temperature on it. So that is a big piece of this. When I was doing it in the walk-in cooler earlier, got an immediate sphere with the maple syrup using the same ones I'm using here. So I can only kind of chalk that up to the temperature because right now we're not really that cold on these. So anyhow, any questions from the group about kind of what we're doing here? Anything else?
We do have some more questions. I have a question. What is the temperature supposed to be at when we say cold? How cold is cold?
Yeah, so you probably want to be around 40 degrees. So that's probably what your refrigerator will chill your food down to, your liquid down to, if you just keep it in the refrigerator. Most refrigerators are set at like 38 degrees, which is perfect. 40 degrees is what we're looking for. So a hard chill in the refrigerator would be good. Obviously, if you put it in the freezer first, it's just going to help get it really nice and cold. But we brought this out a while ago as we were getting ready for the demo and probably let it sit a little bit too long. But you can see we did start getting some jellification there. And it's a little bit different of a process. Like I said, it's the process with the sodium alginate, the calcium lactate or calcium chloride is never going to gel like the items that we saw here, right? This is a full gel on the strawberry puree because we added the agar-agar. sodium alginate is not going to turn it into a solid. It's just going to spherify the outside. So we didn't get it cold enough to set, because you can still start seeing all that liquid is still trying to release as we put it on the pancakes there.
So admittedly, I've done the reverse spherification for making little margarita balls. And there's a question here about, does alcohol change the consistency and can you put it into margaritas? So I personally have used margarita mix to make the reverse spheres. It takes some practice. So I don't know if you want to comment on that, because I don't think the alcohol works as well in the other caviar style, but maybe I just haven't done it right.
It works in the Agar.
It does?
It works in the Agar.
Okay.
Because you're adding something to actually gel the liquid itself. It does not work in the calcium chloride as well, because of the fact that when we're using, the sodium alginate and the calcium lactate, the sodium alginate is actually water soluble. So you can only use these for so long before it starts to break down. And I think the alcohol contributes to the breakdown of those.
And I wonder if we were just using the wrong alcohol for those before, but if you're going to try it, you know, give it a try and taste it. It might be a little bit different than what you're used to. All right. So, but the overall answer, does alcohol change the consistency? Yes and no, depends on which method you're trying. Give it a try. Let's look at some of these other questions. What if we can't find some items? Can we make the items? I don't know that you have easy access to red or brown algae and some of those materials. I think you can easily find them in a grocery store or online. You can't really sub in anything for this particular chemical reaction. So
here's a cheat sheet for you. This company, can you see that?
We might have to get in a little closer there.
chefrubber.com. That's where we get all this stuff.
Very nice.
So go there. None of this product is all that expensive, and you can imagine that a little bag probably will last you a good portion of the year, even if you're regularly doing projects at the house.
All right, let's see. We've got a couple questions here, so if you guys don't mind answering a couple more questions here. I know we're almost towards the end. If you keep the spheres in the fridge, do you need to put liquid in the container with the spheres? So do you need to keep them in oil?
If you're doing the direct spherification with the Agar, it can sit in just the oil that's coating the outside and be totally fine. If you're using the sodium alginate and you're successful with it, you do want to store it in water for up to an hour, but like I said, it's water soluble. So the longer it sits in there, it's actually going to start watering down the product and slowly breaking down that outside membrane.
All right. Let's see, next one. Also with the oil, how do you get the oil off before eating it?
You saw us use the paper towel over there? That's usually the best. We kind of just slide it back and forth. It soaks up a good portion of that. You can let it drain in a colander. You can give the agar pearls a little rinse with water. That's totally fine. The agar are almost indestructible. You could mess with this all day and sit there and be eating little gummies in your office all day long, or at your desk right at school.
Oh, somebody's keeping me honest here with what does water soluble mean? Great question. Water soluble means that the material can be dissolved in water. So that's a really great question there. So thanks for keeping me honest with the science if I missed it. Or if there's anything else that you didn't get a chance to ask here about the science, please by all means jump in. Are these like Orbeez?
They're similar.
They're similar.
That's a really good question.
I mean,
end texture is probably about the same. You cannot eat Orbeez. Don't try to eat Orbeez.
Not eat Orbeez. Yeah, these are really fun. These are fun just to play around with.
They're definitely very similar. They're very similar.
Yeah. Let's see if I can show that on camera. Oops, I just smashed it. So this is actually the inside. Now that we see it, it's fully jellified.
That's awesome.
Yeah, very,
And I want
very
to
cool.
say Orbeez or sodium polyacrylate, but because I don't know off the top of my head, so Orbeez are made of a material that absorbs water, and that's how those get bigger. So that type of gel, that polymer takes in water. Here you're using a material, a chemical reaction to actually take the liquid and then turn it into a gel itself. So similar, but different, if that makes a whole lot of science sense there. All right, so August, a 7-year-old watching tonight, said this looks yummy and can't wait to try it. So great job, you guys. And with that,
All right.
we've covered most of the questions in here. Oh, 2 more, sorry. What if you don't have dry ice? The freezer should work just fine. Yes, Chef?
Freezer works totally fine. We just like playing with dry ice. That's why we brought it up. If you're doing a lot of this like we do, sometimes we're doing balsamic caviar, something like that for upwards to 1,000 people. We'll have a guy sit in the kitchen and have dry ice in multiple containers, and he'll be going back and forth to keep it as cold as possible. So it just kind of depends on what project you're working on. If you're doing something at home, you know, a little cup of oil in the freezer will chill down pretty quickly and be fine.
That's spectacular. Well, I have to agree with August. This looks awesome, and I can't wait to try it. So thank you guys for joining us tonight. This was actually absolutely amazing to go through the science with the recipe once again. And so with our closing moments, looking to both of you for any suggestions to our viewers tonight who might want to get into cooking. I mean, they're here, so we know that they love science and they've been inspired so much more. Any tips for them?
Anything you got?
About like getting into cooking.
Yeah.
I have a tip. Not really a tip, but it's definitely really, really fun because you definitely get to experiment with multiple different things. And it's that just makes the experiments 10 times better the more you can experiment. And I just really I like cooking and I like baking too. They're all really, it's really good. You can get on in on.
Listen, we are fortunate to live in a world these days where there's a ton of information at our fingertips all the time. So I just encourage you to get out there, have fun. Something like this, get outside of the box. Don't worry about making spaghetti and meatballs. Try something crazy. Look, we tried. We failed a little bit on one thing, but we're going to get it down, right? We'll probably practice it again tonight or over the weekend.
But it was still fun. It was still really fun.
Yeah. So at the end of the day, at least enjoy yourself, right? Get in the kitchen, have fun.
We're in that. We're big fans of the whole philosophy of experiment, fail, learn, repeat. So we can't wait to repeat this again with you guys.
That's right.
Thanks again to M Culinary Concepts, Chef Jon Clancy and Chef Peyton. Thank you so much tonight for an awesome recipe. We can't wait to try this again. So those of you who are looking for more science, please, by all means, keep checking your email, keep checking online. You can follow M Culinary Concepts at M Culinary AZ, and you can follow Arizona Science Center at AZ Science or at AZ Science Center, depending on which social channel you're following. And of course, you can find us at Facebook with live demonstrations every day, Monday through Saturday at 9:30 and 1 p.m. Those of you who are at home working on this double life, also serving as educators with your children at home, we also have tips for you for educators and parents at 10:30 Monday, Wednesday, Friday on Facebook Live with our professional learning team who can help give you some tips and tricks. All of our resources are online at azscience.org, and you'll be able to find this video there as well. So thank you all again for joining us tonight. We hope you are staying safe at home, social distancing, and we can't wait to see you guys next time. So again, Chef Jon Clancy and Chef Peyton, thank you again. Bye, everybody.
Thank you, guys. Thank you, Chef. Appreciate it. We're going to enjoy some more lemonade.
Yes. Oh my gosh.
Wonderful. Have a great night, everybody.
Thank you.